What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today, just like the title says, we're going to be installing my BC Racing coilovers. I'm going to be taking off my Airlift system off the car officially. So I know I've been talking about it for a while, but it's happening today. So I'm going to go ahead and address this now because I'm sure you guys are going to ask for it in the comments. How come I am getting rid of my air system? Well, mainly the first reason is, as you guys have seen my channel recently, I've become more in tune with the track and performance end of things. Not so much going to car shows anymore. When I first got this car, I thought maybe throwing some wheels on it, put it on bags, stance it out, whatever, put an intake on it, make it sound nice. That was going to be the end game for me because honestly, this car is really nice looking. I didn't want to do anything to it other than just drive it and enjoy it. But as I got more in tune with the performance side of things, that feeling of having the air system on the car has become almost numb. Like, I just use it sometimes to go out, get out my driveway, or when it snows and stuff like that, I need to get in the driveway and there's packed snow that I need to race the car even higher. But other than that, I don't use it for anything else. Sometimes at work I'll air out and that's about it. But it has become one of those things where it's just there. I don't no longer need it. So what I'm going to be doing is taking the air system off today. Sorry for those of you who like the air system in the car, but I'm going back to coilovers. Now let's take a look at what we got. We have the BC Racing BR series coilovers. They're pretty standard, standard race. I didn't get anything crazy. So these will be 12 fronts, 8 in the rear. Like I said, I just needed something to hold me down till maybe next season when we find out if we do something different. So like I said, BC Racing coilovers for the all-wheel drive. They do have different versions apparently with DDS, without DDS. I don't know if there's like a different spring or whatever it takes, but anyway, make sure you check out, you pay attention to that if you decide to order maybe a set of these online or something like that. So I've installed these before, but never on the Q60, so this will be my first time on the Q60. And well, let's get to it. I'm gonna jack off the car and start doing some things that I gotta do to take the air system up. There you go, guys, the car's all jacked up. I'm gonna be taking these wheels off now. The lug nuts are already loosened up. I actually got a new impact today. Shout out to that thing, I think it's a monster. New impact, got the lugs off within maybe a 10th of the time that they used to take me. And I'm gonna be marking them because I'm gonna be rotating my tires today. And hopefully this doesn't take too long. Next on the list, I already aired out the car while it's on jacks. Yeah, when it's on jacks, you can air out the car. Suspension does not travel whatsoever. So what I'm going to do now is disconnect the battery and then go ahead and release the air pressure from the air tank in the trunk. With the battery unplugged, now we're going to go to the trunk. Keep in mind, guys, this is only because I have airbags in the car. We're going to be releasing the release valve that depressurizes the tank. It's back here somewhere here. Now the air tank is actually all depressurized. I'm gonna come back up here. Now what I could do, so my car doesn't really lose charge, is I could just disconnect everything up here from the air system and put it back on. But I'm gonna leave the battery terminal off. I'm gonna see how long this is gonna take me. If I see that it might take me too long, then I'll just put the battery back on and get a charger. I'll put a trickle charger on. So up next, what we're gonna do is separate the upper control arm from the bottom half of the assembly by removing this 14mm bolt right here. Now that we have the upper control arm, what I'm gonna do is set this assembly down to the side. Now notice this step is not necessary, but I do have a zip tie to hold this to take some tension off the axle boot. I don't want to run into any issues where I maybe tear the axle boot by accident by swinging this entire arm a little too far out or to the side or whatnot. And I also have brake lines over here, so be very mindful. There's a lot of components here that you do not want to damage, including your ABS line. So that's up to you. You can leave it off to the side, let it hang, but I chose to put a zip tie right there. Next up, we have the 14mm bolt at the bottom of the strut, and just like most videos that I've watched, it's easier to remove the end link from the sway bar to allow the bottom control arm, as I explained, to slide down while you're pushing down on the top part of the strut. So we're going to go ahead and remove that bolt right there, 14mm, and the one that connects the end link to the sway bar. So I have the sway bar completely disconnected from the control arm. I just used the jack to jack it up really quick, just so that I could get the bolt straight and not do damage or anything like that. So I have that bolt removed, the bottom one, and also have the upper control arm bolt removed. Let's go ahead and remove the ones here at the top so we can begin taking our strut off. Now the strut bolts are actually going to be 12mm, so make sure you have enough clearance to get in there. I know it's kind of a tight engine bay, but you have 3 12mm bolts you got to remove, and then your strut should be pretty much free to go as far as bolts go. Now, as you can see, my struts is pretty much loose. I have all 3 bolts unbolted and it's almost coming out. The fact that it's an airbag is actually going to come out really easy. So I'm going to removing these, and the bottom half is almost pretty much disconnected right there, and then pull it towards me. So I'll cut this back on as soon as I have the strut up. Finally, the air strut is out of the car. Obviously it's dirty, it just needs to be cleaned up. Like anything in suspension, it gets really dirty through every single type of weather that you put it through. So I'm gonna get this nice and cleaned up and make it look like new. But over here is where we have our BC coilovers that are going in. So I think that's actually a bit low. So I'm gonna raise it up a bit. I'm gonna be running this car a little bit higher than normal, just simply because it's winter time. So yeah, I just put the struts at the level where I want to start as a starting point. So I got 2 inches in the threads right now. That's gonna be my starting point for the fronts, and then go from there at the end of the install if I want to adjust it even further. All right, so what I've done is I put the strut in and simply just started the threads on the nuts. And what I'm gonna do, you see how this is loose down here? What I'm gonna do is, careful guys, this ABS line too, by the way. What I'm gonna do is get the jack, it's over there, and put it underneath the lower control arm, raise it up so that that falls into place and I can start putting everything back together. Now I have the jack in place and it's pushing on the lower control arm. As you can see now, the coilover and the that connection right there are actually meeting, and it's as far as it can go. What I did is kind of just hand thread these up here and then I'll continue on to the next step. When you're putting everything back, I guess it doesn't really matter which way you do it. Personally, I've done it many different ways. You can either tighten that bolt up first, or the top control arm, or you can do the sway bar end link that you undid at the beginning. So either way it works, it's completely up to you. So what I'm gonna do now is put everything back together and show you guys how it looks with all the bolts back on the strut assembly. Now we're completely done on the front driver's side, and pretty much everything is bolted up already. I put the sway bar back on. I'm gonna repeat the exact same steps on the passenger side. Now I'm completely done in the front. I'm gonna move on to the rear. But before we even begin in the rears, what I like to do is, in this rear seat, strip it down to about where you see it. Currently, I removed all of the plastics and took the 3 bolts out of the airbag and disconnected it right at the tip. It's got a little plastic clip on it, and that'll give you access to your strut mounts, which keeps you from removing all of this crap right here, as you can see. And whenever you put it back together, for your convenience, I highly suggest you don't put everything back. Leave the metal plates off. Just put the black plastic piece that goes right in here, which allows you to have easy access to your coilovers and whatnot. So what I'm gonna do is take off that last bolt that I had to take off and begin working on the rears. So I finally got the strut out now. One thing that we have to make sure we do is once the strut is in, the top head is in and everything all the way as far as it can go, we're pretty much gonna have to do what's called setting the preload. Now, preload is pretty much how much this bottom perch here, excuse me, this bottom perch compresses the spring upwards. Now, the factory specs, they call for 2 to 3 millimeters from BC coilovers. So what we're gonna do is pretty much set the preload between 2 to 3 millimeters best as we can. What you need to do is spin this bottom collar upwards till it's snug enough where you can't spin it by hand anymore. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, spin it by hand, push it up. It'll start pushing on the spring. You can stand it up if you like, but that's as far as I can push it by hand right there. So now what you want to do is take this locking collar and move it all the way up until this spring collar. All right, don't tighten it up, just snug it up. And now the preload, it's gonna be, like we mentioned, 2 to 3 millimeters, and we can use this as a rule of thumb. But so what you're gonna do is pretty much start spinning this collar even further with your wrench, I think it's this one right here, until it creates enough distance, like 2 to 3 millimeters, 4 millimeters, and then move the locking collar up and then tighten it up. So that's what I'm gonna do now, is spin this collar. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be close in those specs. It kind of prevents you from having any noise issues or anything like that. So as you can see, my wrench right now, it actually fits right in between the groove. Now that's pretty much the preload is set. The preload is set. Now move up the locking collar all the way up, and you're free to tighten this up. So turn this one clockwise and this one counterclockwise to tighten them up. Oops. There we go. The rears are fairly simple. It's just one bolt right there at the bottom of the strut. Once you remove that bolt, then the entire strut starts to hang. You can go up top and remove the strut bolts, but I highly recommend keeping it on a jack so it doesn't drop. That way there's no tension on the bolts on the top end of the car. So once you take those bolts out, the strut should drop out, and you can just pop this one back in, no problem. Welcome back, guys. It's a new day. Just a couple of things. I got 3 struts out of 4 done, and I got some of the air tank out, and currently I am warming up the garage because it is really cold in here, and I want to get it to about 70-80 degrees so I can feel comfortable working in it. So all I have left is that 4 strut on the driver rear, and once that's done, it will be 100% complete. Just some wiring harness and stuff like that that have nothing to do with the coilover install. But overall, it's been a fairly easy install. I have nothing negative to say, especially about the BC Racing product. It was pretty easy, straightforward to put in, and just be careful, take your time, don't damage any ABS lines and stuff like that. So I'll get back to you guys as soon as the install is complete. So there it is, guys. All 4 struts are on. Right now, it's just going to take me a while to get all of these wires from the air system that were tucked underneath the car, underneath all the bottom panels, and get those out of the way. But they're pretty much in through there, all the way into the trunk. I pretty much have the trunk dismantled right there. This is kind of what I'm dealing with. Airlift did a really good job of hiding everything, but at the same time is making me do a lot of extra work. So all the airlines are in pretty good shape. Everything is in great condition. So I'm gonna get this off, and the next time I'll cut this video back on, hopefully I'll have the wheels on already in the car, sort of lined out how I want it as far as height goes. Here we go, guys. The install is 100% complete. I just have to set the dampening setting on the 4 corners. But other than that, the car is pretty much level where I want it to be. It is freezing outside, it is cold, there's snow, so I wanted some wheel gap for the winter time. The front is a little bit higher, of course, for clearance purposes, but yeah, guys, the install is 100% complete. There's nothing left in the trunk. All the wires have been removed. Everything's torqued down, good to go. So I am ready to drive this thing and possibly get it in line later this week. But other than that, it was a successful installation. Well, guys, the installation is complete. I am 100% happy with my results. The only thing I would recommend is take your time. Make sure you put everything back where originally came from, like little nuts and bolts and clips. I know how annoying those things can be when you misplace them. But the installation, yeah, just really take your time. It's really not a rush job, especially with some of the stuff in the interior that you got to take off. It's very brittle and very easy to break stuff, and it's not going to be 100% fitment once you put it back. That's just got 100% guaranteed. Now, with that said, this installation, it took me maybe overall about 2 hours, 3 hours tops. The thing that took me the most time was disassembling my air system out of the car. So other than that, it shouldn't take you guys too long, especially if you're indoors in a warm climate and that good stuff. If you guys like today's video, go ahead and hit that like button. If you want to subscribe to the channel, go ahead and smash that subscribe button, please. I love you guys. Thank you so much for your support. Next video, I think what I'm going to be doing is taking out the diff fluid, and we're going to replace it, as I mentioned in the previous video. I think it's overdue, so we're going to go ahead and do that next video more than likely, but I'll keep you guys tuned. Thanks for watching.